Hey everybody, what's up? Welcome once again. We're back. The East West Connection Wrestling Podcast. Sorry about the delay. Last week we had a little bit of issues. My fault. Not a problem though. We're gonna get the things rolling back on track. We're gonna get back to the format. Last week, what happened, dude? I said hold on one second. I figured you were gonna pause taping. Not, this isn't a live show. I hate to break that to everybody. We edit and put together the show. You couldn't even wait for me. I had a special guest. I'm wearing a shirt tonight. I thought it was tonight we were doing the special guest.
I don't know what happened. All of a sudden, I was kind of killing time. I was stalling a little bit for
I
you,
know.
um,
Yeah, right. I
and then
appreciate
I
it.
should have, yeah, I should have stopped recording, but I was just trying to stall a little bit, and then
Right,
your cat's on camera, so I was like, okay, let's roll with this. She might have something to say,
right,
and
right.
then all of a sudden, Tully Blanchard shows up,
Yeah,
and it's just like,
yeah.
holy
I'm
crap,
I'm
you know.
pissed. I missed him by like a split second. I've been wanting to meet that guy. I try to be professional. I try not to do pictures and autographs and that. But man, that would have been cool to be in the same room as a legend. Anyway, getting off track. That was 2 weeks ago. We're back now. A loaded show, really. Kinda. We're back, so it's loaded. But what we're reviewing, man, maybe not so much. That'll be up to you to decide. But anyway, let's get right to it. Monday Night Raw. We're here October 16th, 1995. We're rolling. We're back on track. WWF, however, they're not really rolling. We'll get into that a little bit. But we're here. We're still on a taped show. I think this is the third week they were taped. They don't even tell you where they're from when they're taped. But they're still in Grand Rapids, Michigan for the third week in a row. I think next week they'll be live after the pay-per-view. That makes sense. But an interesting show. Not a whole lot going on, especially for the go-home edition of a pay-per-view. Before we get into the action, do you have any quick thoughts on just the overall state of the WWF right now?
Well, you actually stole my words right from my mouth here, from my cheat sheet. I was kind of disappointed a little bit because for the big show before In Your House, it was like there wasn't much going on.
Right.
There was nothing on here that wanted me to shell out whatever it was back then, $20-$30 for a pay per view that didn't plug necessarily or build hardly anything for the show.
Right. No, and
So
if
I mean,
anything, even with the main event, it was a cage match. They built it up real well. Brett versus Isaac Yankem. That wasn't a match that was going into this pay-per-view. So essentially, this was a throwaway episode. And you especially as the Attitude Era really picks up, you'll see that the go-home episodes of pay-per-views are almost bigger than the pay-per-views because they're enticing you to pay money. Then this is our free stuff, but you want to buy this show on Sunday, folks. This was not that show. Let's get into it. I feel like we're wasting too much time for a lackluster event here. Triple H versus Doink the Clown, our opening contest. Really, these two on paper don't look like they ever would have crossed paths. But of course, at this time, he's Hunter Hearst Helmsley and not the water spewing madman that we know today. But Triple H picks up the win. This is just a quick squash. They're pushing Hunter pretty big. This is the start of his push anyway. What do you think of the blue blood Hunter Hearst Helmsley, KG?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, they were pushing him pretty big. They mentioned on last week's episode, which was 2 weeks ago, if you're following along with us, that Hunter Hearst Helmsley had not been defeated yet, so he was undefeated, coming off of his win still against Barry Horowitz. So he stayed undefeated. Doink the Clown, very underrated worker, very underrated talent in general. But
Sure.
anyway, we got to see kind of a quick match here. During this contest, however, they really talked about, which was almost like the focal point of the episode, Shawn Michaels getting jumped in a Syracuse bar. I thought that
Right.
was weird for this point in 1995 when kayfabe was still very much alive and well. That this sort of thing to be brought up in the middle of the show was very strange for me. How
Right.
did you feel about
No, you're absolutely right. This was something, and actually, we talked about this in the pre-show meeting. Was that this could have been an angle? They could have made something big out of this. They could have made a guy, because Sean, if he was going to be out for a while, or he's lost his smile, or whatever his excuse was this time, if he was going to be out for any extended period of time, you could put a nobody over, have a backstage segment where you hit him with a lead pipe, boom, Shawn Michaels is out, and Mabel, it was the one who attacked him. That's going to get a guy over, even if it's just a one match feud when he comes back. But no, instead they put 9 Marines over. From Syracuse, New York. I guess I should, have some claim to fame from that because I might have been at that show for all I remember. But no, Sean, I guess he got lippy at a bar, and I'm a tough guy. You know, that mentality came off, and he picked a fight with the wrong guys, or they picked a fight with him, whatever the story may be. Real story may be 3-4 guys, but of course on TV they're gonna play it up like he got jumped by the whole squad, the whole Navy took him down. But
The whole bar.
it definitely was. It was a change to, and it almost made him look vulnerable too in a way. Your superstars, your top superstars, are supposed to be larger than life, and here they're getting beat up by some dudes at a bar.
Right.
So
Exactly.
I don't know if that was the right call.
Exactly. That's exactly the last point you made was exactly what I was going to say. Like, this is your top guy, and you just
Right.
said like, oh, some Joe schmoes at a bar beat him up. You know what I mean? So,
Right. Yeah.
I just didn't see where you could benefit from this at all. I mean, we saw also a few weeks ago that Shawn looked like he was a little out of it, a little druggy looking, a little, so it's like you almost see why now looking back at this, why Shawn Michaels did step away from wrestling and why he did lose his smile. It's like he was definitely had some, possible drug or alcohol issues on top of the fact of his outside of the ring stuff going on, getting jumped. So I could definitely see where this was, where this was going with his career, like why he wanted to step away. It kind of makes a little bit more sense when I was a kid watching and be like, what do you mean? What do you mean Shawn Michaels is retiring? He's in the prime of his career here, like I don't know. It just seemed it seemed odd at the time, but definitely makes sense now.
Right.
So I'll take over here. Match 2, not much to talk about. We had PG-13. We talked about them last time, kind of the trash bag indie looking guys who could work against the Smoking Guns. The big story during this match, however, was the Yoko versus Mabel highly anticipated contest at In Your House.
Right. Right. Now that was due to Taker. I think he in real life broke his orbital bone due to one of the leg drops of either of these guys. I think it was Mabel. He was a little more reckless than Yoko. And then, of course,
Right.
this would lead to, as you call it, the Phantom of the Opera era of the Undertaker, which was also a little goofy. But if he needed a mask for an orbital, thing, then that's one thing. I think at the time there was also a rumor that he got a tattoo, like the teardrop or something, and it was for that.
Oh yeah.
But yeah. Anyway, but no, Taker's out. He's out of the pay-per-view, which I think it was originally him versus Mabel. Now Yoko steps in, and it was still a heel versus heel match. They booked it as President Gorilla Monsoon, with the clashing of the two titans. The match you always wanted to see. Nobody wanted to see it. So it's gonna be a waste of 10 minutes on the pay-per-view. But if you're into two fat guys, slowly punching each other, then yeah,
that's all. Just stop right there. If you're into two fat guys, just end the sentence right there.
Right. Oh, but no, you're right. That was the story of the match, which sucked because at the time the Guns were good. They were talented dudes, and PG-13, like you said, the look wasn't there, but in ring it was they were talented dudes. And it was a decent match for for as shitty as this Raw was. This was probably one of the better matches. But no, the Guns retain the tag titles. PG-13. I'm surprised they're even still getting TV time. Jerry Lawler must have some pictures of Vince in the back. I don't know. He's got something on Vince to have his boys get this much TV time.
Yeah, for real. So following this contest, we got to see some. Just wanted to point out some Ahmed gibberish.
Love it.
My God! Another thing I missed when I was a kid, how horrible Ahmed Johnson was on the mic. Oh my God! Like yeah. I didn't know what he was saying. He had the whole Mississippi Deep South. I don't mumbo jumbo, got marbles in his mouth. Johnson.
And then everything had to be over the top, extreme. So you couldn't understand him, even if he was clear and coherent. Everything sounded like this. So there was no way. YouTube, go on YouTube, folks. Look up what was it? Fun with Ahmed. Just put that in your search bar. Fun with Ahmed.
And you'll have fun.
We'll try to find something that you could search search for fun every week. This is it for sure. There's a few different ones, few different versions of them, but this dude, man, no way. He needed a manager. He needed a mouthpiece, for sure.
Oh my God, for sure. Especially during this time period, as we take a look at Jim Cornette with the British Bulldog, with interviewed by Doc Hendricks. It's like everybody had a manager. So why didn't Ahmed Johnson have one? You know what I mean? Like this big, huge jack guy that couldn't talk. Like him of all people should have had one. Yeah, sure. But anyway, back to this segment. It got me wondering about the British Bulldog. He held like every title known to man except for the world title. European champion, tag team champion, intercontinental champion,
hardcore
champion. Did he hold any in WCW TV title or anything? I don't know. It seemed like he had a lot. Yeah, he had a lot of. Was he ever a top guy
He
at
was
top
US
echelon?
champ in the early '90s before he came back. Like when he came back in the later part of his career, I don't think he had any title runs. I could be mistaken, but I at least remember a U.S. title run. I'm pretty sure.
Okay, yeah, he
In,
feuded with.
we still had the long hair and the dreads.
He had a short feud with Vader in the early '90s, or previous to this, when Vader was the world champion as a babyface, kind of coming off of his momentum after beating Bret Hart at SummerSlam '92. So was he ever the top guy? He was real close, many times. So we're gonna put that out there as a poll question for you guys this week. I don't think we had one for last week, but we'll definitely put one out there for you guys. British Bulldog was a really popular superstar, wrestler, whatever you want to call him. So I'd be interested to see what you guys have to say on that one. Moving right along to match number 3, we had Dean Douglas versus Hot Bod, who was Joe Dorgan. Is that what you had? Maybe we don't know. We don't know who he was. Handsman talent. But during this match, we go back to the HBK, beatdown where Vince has Shawn Michaels on the phone during this match with Dean Douglas. I didn't get it. It was like the focal point of the show was Shawn Michaels getting jumped in a bar. It really threw me off. Anyhow, Douglas picks up the victory with the perfect plex. We see Doc Hendricks plugging some more merch, as they like to do every episode. And now we're starting to set up the shark cage and the blue cage. I missed the blue cage. How did you feel about the blue cage? I know a lot of the workers didn't like it because it was kind of gaudy and it hurt. But what were some of your memories there of the big blue steel cage?
Yeah, for sure. I'll always go back to Hogan and Bundy, Mania 2, and I'll always remember too getting the playset, the LJN, the ring extension or the cage extension to the ring. That was was a huge deal for me at 3-4 years old. Shout out to my Aunt Lorraine for that one. Awesome Christmas present. But no, blue cage was fun. It was fun. It looked cooler. Like the chain link mesh fence. I don't know. It almost looks more dangerous, but in terms of like a wrestling match, I think it's easier for the camera too. You could fit it in one of the squares and still catch the action. Whereas the chain link, it's a lot harder to catch good shots. We have like video background, so those are things you kind of look at too. Is like the aesthetics of things, how they come off on TV or when you're presenting something to an audience. So if I had to pick, I'd probably say I'm a blue cage guy myself.
Yeah, definitely. I think it was Brett that said that he didn't like working in them. Or Shawn Michaels, one of the ones that did a lot of those type matches. Brett, obviously, with his brother Owen, that's another one I think of with the blue cage. Sure. But it was very bulky and it was not very forgiving. So I guess it was tough. It was tough to work with from a performance standpoint.
Right. I guess it moves with you. It sways a little bit left to right. Whereas these blue ones, they're stiff. They're not moving. So I get that for sure.
So before we get to our next contest, we got to see Goldust and his another one of his crazy promos as he's going to debut at the next In Your House pay-per-view, which is this upcoming Sunday, followed by a Paul Bearer promo where we are kind of hinted to the fact of the Phantom of the Opera mask that you already alluded to. And we move into the main event. Sig, what did you have here on the main event? Dr. Isaac Yankem, a.k.a. Kane, versus Brett the Hitman Hart.
Forget that one.
Fake Diesel. A.k.a. Fake Diesel, yes.
Now, real quick, just want to jump back to Goldust real quick before we get into the main event. Goldust is so different for 1995. I want to say, ahead of his time it's a term that could fit, but really he wasn't. He was in the right place at the right time. He got over perfectly because of how unique he was. But for the cartoony WWF, he does seem out of place right now. Just on the promos, but it's good stuff. It's almost like realistic in a weird way. Realistic probably isn't the right term for it, but it's gritty. It's real. Whereas Duke Drosy and the Goon and like these are characters we're still seeing that are just they're cartoon characters. But this Goldust is weird. It was real, we're onto something. They're onto something with Goldust. We're gonna see it. They put some momentum behind him once he starts getting some wins behind him, and it's a fun character. It's a big change of pace for them. But anyway, the Paul Bearer promo, that was what it was. But Brett and Yankum, honestly, I wasn't a big fan. I felt it went a little too long, which is funny because for the WCW Nitro cage match they had a couple weeks ago, I said it was too short. So for me, I guess there's a happy medium when it comes to a cage match main event. But this was a feud that was already dead in the water. They already had their blow off. Isaac Yankum was an extension of Jerry Lawler, which essentially was also the story of the match, was Jerry Lawler getting up into the shark cage. So really, the action in the ring was secondary to whether or not Lawler was going to interfere at first, and then how they were going to get him in the cage, and then hoisted him up in the air. So really, the match itself was a gimmick just to get the more of Jerry Lawler and Bret Hart over, which, like we said a couple weeks ago, has been an ongoing feud for 2 years now. So it all seemed out of place. None of this was leading to anything at the pay-per-view. Which I guess maybe it's they had to shuffle some things. You know, Taker's injury happened, and that shuffled some things. And then, of course, Shawn Michaels gets beat up by 47 Marines. So you're down 2 matches for your pay-per-view. I guess, maybe that's the only excuse I could think of with why the show just came off flat. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they just had to throw this tag match together. Some notes from the match. I mean, the actual in-ring match was definitely lackluster. But the actual, Jerry Lawler, of course, if he had interfered in the match, he would be placed into a shark cage, shark tank, whatever you want to call it, and his own separate cage. So, of course, he interferes. He goes up into this apparatus, whatever, into the sky. Not too high, though. Only about 20 feet high, I would say. Maybe another 10 feet above the ring, 10, 15 feet above the ring.
So you don't want to go too high up.
Right, of course. We hear some more canned stuff. We hear canned Burger King chant, and wouldn't you know it, there is a headset inside the cage, so we get to hear all of Jerry Lawler's commentary during the match. Right. And unfortunately, since he was about 20 feet in the air or so, he suffered an injury. He started the bleeding from his nose, which was crazy because he what happened when the guy went up like 4 flights of stairs or got on an airplane? God only knows.
Every time, man.
So anyway, yeah, that's about all I had for Raw. Brett picked up the victory, no surprise. We'll have In Your House on Sunday, which is definitely going to be jammed up. So we're not going to even get into a lot of the matchups with that. We will see the debut of Goldust. We will see the Intercontinental title on the line. And we will see Diesel and the British Bulldog for the World Heavyweight Championship. So moving on to Monday Nitro, which is coming to you live, as Eric Bischoff likes to say about 8,000 times. From Albany, Georgia, we have Captain Love Dog alongside Bobby Brain Heenan, Eric Bischoff, and, of course, Steve Mongo McMichael, who is still horrible on commentary, no surprise. And we see Sting is now going to be involved with the main event. He is now Ric Flair's partner. Had you not watched Saturday Night, however, you would have never known that.
Right. That's a perfect example of what I've been getting at the past few shows here, is that Saturday Night is still a big deal. It's almost like the SmackDown to Raw, if you will, or maybe even more of an even kilter than that. Because they're still pushing. Savage is going to be on the show. Hogan, the guys that you're not really seeing even wrestle on Nitro. Well, not that they're wrestling on Saturday Night, but they're making their appearances. Whereas in modern day, you save those guys for the big shows. So it's funny, like they're Nitro's the experiment, and they think they're onto something, but they're not positive, so they're still going to push Saturday Night. But so just interesting to see the comparisons there, and especially now that they're doing Saturday Night exclusive angles to push for Nitro. Because like you said, if you just watch Nitro week to week, like we didn't really plan on watching every single, show of the week to, our research or anything. So yeah, when I was watching it back, it caught you off guard until they said, well, this was a revelation from Saturday Night, so, but yeah, Sting is involved with the Nature Boy. Ric Flair's on his own. He needs backup, and Sting's the man to come to the aid. So that sets up the main event tonight. But I don't know. Sting and Ric Flair, we'll see what happens, I guess, right?
Yeah, we'll stay tuned because we know we've been down this road before.
Right. Nitro looked good tonight. I think we kicked off with a TV title match, unless I'm forgetting anything after they started off the show with Pepe, of course, with Mongo. And you're right, Mongo is horrible. Quick side note, a lot of guys, when they're new to something, you give them a chance. You say, maybe they'll get better with time, or whatever. Didn't happen,
No,
man. Mongo
it,
Mongo was Mongo was
well,
not a qualified headset operator. Let's just say that. But
I
on to
just
the
don't
action.
understand. I just want to put in
Yeah,
one more point. I don't understand why you would take a retired football player and put him on your primetime wrestling television show when the guy
right.
has zero background. I mean, that's just that. I mean, and he wasn't even like a big name from the Chicago Bears. It's not like they got Walter Payton or William Refrigerator Perry. They got some, linebacker or whatever he was, offensive lineman. They didn't even get like some big guy. You know what I mean? So like, what was the
Yeah.
point behind that? I didn't understand it.
I could see if there was a reason for it, and it was like a one match thing. Our special analyst, NFL great Mongo Steve, but no, he was a
Right.
fixture, and we had to deal with it, which sucks because at this point, especially now we're maybe a month and a half, 2 months into our research of the actual head to head of Nitro versus Raw, and I enjoy Nitro on the whole more than Raw at this point. But it sucks because I have to listen to him, so it's a trade off, But
Yeah.
anyway, our opening contest. Let's finally get into it. A TV title match. It's going to be Johnny B. Bad versus the champion, new champ from a couple weeks ago, Diamond Dallas Page. Match doesn't even get underway. DDP, or it does officially, but DDP immediately attacks Johnny B. Bad with his little confetti shooter deal. Ref throws the match out. So at least we're looking at, I assume, another week or two at the minimum of a DDP versus Johnny B. Bad feud, which I'm okay with. DDP is starting to get over. He's starting to find himself as a character. And Johnny
Yeah,
B. Bad, Mark Miro, hell of a talent, honestly.
Yeah, I was just saying that DDP was a good heel at this point.
Yeah,
You know, I
I dug him.
yeah, I thought he knew what he was
He's
doing,
almost
and
a
then
little gimmicky.
what's that?
He was almost a little too gimmicky. Like he almost he wears too much stuff. Just
His look,
yeah,
yeah,
he's
his
just
look could
very
his
loud.
look could have used, yeah, his look could have used a little more, a little change.
Right.
However, I thought he knew how to get over as a heel.
Sure.
Especially, I mean, he attacked whatever at the ring bell, but he also had a pretty lady, his wife at this point, whatever. I don't know if they were husband and wife at this point, but Diamond Doll. Now she's starting to not approve of his bad guy antics. So we'll see how the dynamics, how they play out in the next coming weeks, and of course probably a possible rematch here with DDP and Johnny B. Bad, who I agree was a good talent as
Yeah,
well.
sure. But no, it's interesting you brought up the Diamond Doll aspect of this. They're definitely trying to create a Macho Man Miss Elizabeth angle where
Yeah.
the dastardly, cowardly heel, and of course the beautiful, innocent, sweet ballet who
Right.
for whatever reason is enamored with the bad guy, and you want to see her leave him. So it's just a classic recreation of that angle, which honestly you didn't see too much of before this, before Macho Man, obviously. But it was the right pairing to try that again with, I think, and it
Yeah.
helped DDP get over. So
Sure.
I like it. Next up, man, my segment of the week. A little spoiler alert before we even get into ECW, which also had some really good stuff. Chris Benoit makes his WCW debut against Eddie Guerrero. Funny side note, quick, if you're pulling this up on the network and you scroll down to pick it match by match, they show this one as Eddie Guerrero in a singles match. So it just goes to show what kind of lengths they go to keep Benoit out of history. But
Right.
for us, there's no getting around it. Chris Benoit versus Eddie Guerrero on any level, any year is going to be a top quality match. They had good amount of time and they didn't pull away for a 2-minute Hulk Hogan promo. So I was happy, dude. At the end of this one, Benoit picked up the win, which really was the right way to go. Eddie's been having strong contests the last few weeks. If you give Benoit a loss right now, it would hurt him, I think. On its
Yeah, it was
debut,
his
at least.
debut match. It was his debut match. So Eddie actually had won his debut match versus Dean Malenko, which of course match didn't really happen in a way because it got interrupted by Hogan. So you had to have Benoit come in and look strong.
Sure.
A couple points that I had was like these guys were so high impact, high intensity. Like their style of working is like 3 times faster than anybody that got into the ring at this point, and just everything was so crisp and so perfect that you would want to see in a match. One interesting side note also was the fact that Benoit, who was gassed to the gills and always had a great physique, was considered a cruiserweight at this point. Like he looked, I understand he was 5'8" or whatever, but like he
Right.
was huge. Like he had to be at least 240, 230. You know what I mean? He looked like a
Right.
he looked like a monster. You know what I mean? And Eddie,
Yeah, no,
you know,
you're right.
you know,
But on the flip side, you got to think too that one, they're just starting to build this cruiserweight division, which they literally just started talking about how they're building it here. So it's something that's starting up. So you want to build it as a big deal. You want to have unique talent to it, and you got to think too. If you look at the heavyweights they have, and they have some real heavyweights here. The Giant, Hogan. You know, these are tall dudes, thick dudes, big dudes. Vader. You know, well he had just left, but you get the idea. Put him up, Chris Benoit. He doesn't really look like a heavyweight at this point, even though, like you said, you know, certainly he's jacked and gassed. But compared to the actual heavyweights, yeah, I think this was the right spot for him to showcase what he had, and especially with the rest of the talent in that division, it was the perfect spot for him to start in WCW.
yeah, definitely a good starting point. But obviously, we'll see him move up
Oh,
the
sure.
ranks too. I also want to start a clicker for every time I hear Steve Mongo McMichael say, "Well, if you're not a fan, like how many times does he say that? If you're not a fan of this match, if you're not a fan of wrestling, you know, it's just like, oh God, please make it stop,
Right. If
please."
you're not a fan of me on commentary,
Yeah,
I
could be
almost sounded like
everyone.
Tully Blanchetta right there. That was weird. Did you hear that?
Oh
Sounded
yeah,
like
well
that
he's
was
probably
weird.
on your mind still, you know,
Oh,
from you know his you know his 8x10 is right behind me here.
right,
So let's move along here in the action.
right.
Uh, there's not really much going on here.
Big
We have the
matchup next,
rooftop.
man.
What's that?
Big matchup next, man. Ming versus Jim Duggan.
Well, before we get to that, we now find out that the monster truck is going to take the monster truck madness is going to take place on top of a
Yes.
rooftop. Interesting. What's
Oh
going to
yeah.
happen? And also, like we said, we're going to look at Saturday night. Big show. Hogan and Savage are going to be on the show. We see Disco come out and dance again before our big match that you were ready to dive into. And I'll let you
Right.
have this one here. Mang versus Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Ming, I'm
Well,
sorry.
unfortunately, there's not much to dive into. I almost feel like the Disco Inferno was the story of the match again. Just like last week, his antics kind of make the match, and then the match is secondary. But no, this week he barely escaped getting out of the way of Ming or Mang as you call him on the way out to the ring. Uh, but no, this was a good match. Duggan had a great reaction. We had talked about that in the post show meeting or the pre show meeting, excuse me. So Duggan, even in '95, was still a great character. He had longevity for sure, and even later on in his WWE run up until the 2000s, 2008, whatever. Jim Duggan was a great character, always a personal favorite of ours. But unfortunately, he didn't last too long tonight. Ming Mang picks up the win. The former Haku picks up the win with the Tongan spike, and that's all she wrote for Hacksaw tonight.
Yeah, it was a very short-lived match. I'll just go right into the next segment here. We have Hogan and Jimmy Hart. Another interesting promo with Hogan here, as this is the second week in a row where he took another shot at Vince. So you see Nitro, as we've seen with Bischoff, and now Hogan again, and following last week, starting to take jabs at WWF or WWE. And he says Hulkamania is 2 times bigger than your entire promotion. So him alone is bigger than all of WWF. He also mentions his son again, and how I guess this match is taking place in Detroit, Michigan. The Giant and Hulk Hogan, the same place where he had defeated his father, the Pontiac Silverdome, and wrestle. And it's like. So anyway, we'll move into the main event here. We had Fryan, flying, even though he wasn't flying Brian Pillman anymore. We have Brian Pillman and Arn Anderson versus Ric Flair and his mystery partner, who we now know is Sting. Here, what did you have on the main event action here? We seen a lot of 2-on-1 here at the beginning.
Yeah, right. Sting needed to wait a little bit to make sure that Flair was on the up and up. He wanted to make sure it wasn't going to be a swerve, which we'll see very soon. He didn't do his homework, but as far as tonight goes, he waited till about halfway in. Flair versus Arn and Pillman. Now I'm going to fast forward a little bit in time, then we're going to come back. It's almost like a Pulp Fiction narrative here, but look at what Flair, Anderson, and Pillman put themselves through just to get one over on Sting. That spoiler alert. They're going to turn on Sting in 2 weeks. Flair goes the reformation of the Horsemen, and they take Sting out. Why are you having a 15-minute match with your brothers in arms, Arn Anderson, and your new recruit Brian Pillman? Like not just maybe chain wrestling. We're gonna grapple, but we're not hurting each other. This was like a chop fest, brutal, like brutal stuff, all to get over on Sting in 2 weeks. Like, why didn't you just jump him? I don't know. The storyline itself was goofy, but the match was interesting, I guess, for what it's leading to. So Flair takes a beating for half the match, and Sting runs down, cleans house. But just like most Nitro main events, the main event power is there, the marquee matchup is there. The finish is not. The non-finishes were really getting to be a thing at this point, and we're only 2 months, not even 2 months into Nitro, and it's very clear that they're not giving away big finishes on TV. So if that doesn't bother you, it's a fun show. But if you're looking for like big conclusive finishes to feuds and like match storyline progression, it might not really be there. But the storyline is set up. It's going to be the new Horsemen, or they haven't called them that, but Arn and Pillman representing the original Horsemen versus Flair, who's on his own as a babyface, and his new compadre Sting. So, like we said, we know what's coming. They make Sting look like a goober here, and I don't know. I didn't dig it altogether. Anything more on it?
And you talk about how WCW does these type of finishes, but like these type of angles and swerve angles or whatever were also a staple too, because they did the same thing when we see the NWO or the NWO Wolfpack. It's like, so 2 weeks ago you were in this blood feud with this guy, and now he's in your gang. Like it didn't make any sense,
Right.
So like, as much as we enjoyed Nitro as more than Raw, and in some aspects too, it's just like it left you scratching your head, like, well, what was the point of that? So just putting the finishing touches on Raw or Nitro, I'm sorry, is we're going to see the build as we work towards Halloween Havoc. We'll see Hulk Hogan next week. Also, we're going to see them following the Saturday night show. So that's all I had for Raw and Nitro. Raw actually won the ratings war this week with a 2-6, and Nitro a 2-2. So it's very close. We see flip-flopping with the ratings, and they were tied. So we're going to see a lot of back and forth with this for a while, I feel.
Yeah. This is really like the start of the war, because it really was back and forth for a while before one show got well ahead of the other for a consistent period of time. So we're gonna see a lot of ties. We're gonna see a lot of maybe 1 or 0.12s, 0.012 differences, things like that.
Right.
So yeah, they're neck and neck for a while here. But show wise, I think, or at least match quality wise, and show overall show progression, show format wise, I got to give it Nitro lately. Raw's been boring the hell out of me.
Yeah, Raw is you might have one match on the card that's like watchable, and then and then it's just loaded with segments and loaded with promos. Some are good, some aren't good. It just feels like there's no flow with the show either. Like there's no like, okay, so Diesel is your champion. How many matches have we seen Diesel in? You know what I mean? And that's not to say, I mean, Hogan's the same thing, but Hogan is like still their like focal point of the show. Diesel, I feel like, is an afterthought. He's the champion. Shawn Michaels is a big part of the show, so we see him, but like there's no like, I don't know. It's almost like AEW now. Like it's just like there's no rhyme or reason. Like one guy, one week this guy's facing this guy, and the next week he's facing that guy, and there's no story between them. They're just two guys thrown together, and or a feud from 4 months ago with Yankum and Brett that was at SummerSlam. Now they're going to face each other again. It's just it doesn't make any sense. So anyway, let's move into.
Fortunately, brother, we don't have to be upset, because even though Raw sucked and Nitro less sucked, there's a third option. There's ECW, and this is just like Living It Live. This is what I was looking forward to all week, or most weeks, really, because Raw and Nitro, sometimes they both sucked. I may have liked something, like you said, you might be able to pick out a match or two and say, yeah, that was good stuff. ECW is always a consistently good show. Hardcore TV, it's just the format's there. It might be a little jumpy sometimes. It might be hard to follow, but it's a good show. Let's jump into it. What'd you have for the start of the show, Gage?
The start of the show, we had this takes place 10/17/1995. We see Beulah's box again. It's always open, and then we go into like a Beulah vignette or a promo video with some porn music of hers, and we see all the classic times that she took her clothes off, and all the times she was given the pile driver, and all that type of stuff. Also, we went in to see the debut of Bubba Bubba Dudley. So this got me to think too. We were talking about longevity. You were talking about Hacksaw. How about the longevity of Bubba Dudley? I mean,
Sure.
he is recently still part of was part of Ring of Honor, Impact,
Yeah.
and it's back to 1995. And he's
Right.
so a lot of longevity. With that character.
Sure.
So I thought it was cool. I thought he did the whole stuttering thing and. I kind of popped for it a little bit. I was like, oh wow, because I'm starting to see some things that now are like, okay, this is I remember this now. You know what I mean? Like not like these little vignettes of like, who's this guy? Who's that guy? You know what I mean?
Right. Right. Now, this was a fun angle. I really love the Dudleys at this point. The clan itself was a joke, but each individually they were like you could take them seriously. Big Dick was no joke. And Bubba at this point he was a joke, but as a clan, as a they were a threat. They were Ravens flunkies. They were part of main event angles. So even though they were a joke, they weren't to be taken lightly. But you know what I mean. So they were an
Right.
interesting clan of characters. Definitely fun, and just like you said, the longevity of Bubba from where he was here, and now even I think his Ring of Honor contract actually just lapsed. He may be making an appearance at Impact. He's like an Aces and Eights reunion. Yeah, Bully Ray, Bubba Ray, certainly a hell of a longevity, longetive. Certainly a long
I
career.
don't know.
Certainly
I don't know.
a long career. Let's just go with that. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. All right,
Okay. Anyway.
let's edit that. I don't know if we're editing.
No way, no way. It's too good. Okay, match one.
All right, King
Match
Tech.
one.
All right.
We have Psychosis versus Rey Mysterio Jr. We have Joel Gertner, who I have not seen yet, who's bilingual. He's the ring announcer. And this was my segment of the week. Getting ahead of ourselves. I guess we'll just call them as they happen as we go through. But this was a 2 out of 3 falls match, and this was insane. There was just so many spots and so much action. It was, I don't know. If you're not a fan of that, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know. There's so many things that happen that unless you watch it and go back and see. I mean, the fans and gave them a standing ovation, which was not something that the ECW fans took lightly. You know what I mean? They really had to appreciate what you were given to the match, your body, and it was awesome. What were your thoughts on the 2 out of 3 falls classic?
Yeah, great match. It took up almost half of the show, so definitely they had the time to tell the story that they needed to. The 2 out of 3
Mhm.
falls match is always fun. But really, I think what stands out to this is that in today's era, there's so many different types and styles of wrestling that everything's accepted on some level. But to the American fans, lucha libre was unheard of almost, unless you really sought it out before this. This was the first
Right.
lucha on national TV, not national yet, but the first TV exposure for lucha libre in America. So
Right.
just that unique style, that ECW hardcore rabid fan base, they bit right into it because just the showcase of athleticism from lucha libre is unmatched. For sure, like you said, the well-deserved standing ovation. Great series of matches. The first one was great, and then now 2 out of 3, just as good.
And the crazy part about it too is they also pointed out that this was a 6-year feud. So
Right.
just imagine the type of chemistry that these two guys have
Oh,
built over the course of 6 years. I mean, you hear about Flair and Steamboat, and you hear about these guys that had long, like year-long feuds. 6 years is like crazy. I mean, that's
yeah.
a ridiculous amount of time to feud with somebody. So you had to really, work your butt off to really, pull some things out to keep people interested in a feud that went on for 6 years. And the ECW fans were educated enough to probably see some tape on these guys, trading tapes back during this time. So I've actually been exposed to these guys, and so they couldn't just pull out the same old, oh, let's do what we did, last
Right.
February. I mean, let's give something new. You know what I mean? So the fact that they had to like reinvent the match for 6 years basically is incredible to me.
No, these guys were on the money. It was they almost had to like reinvent their style to an American style, just slightly enough
That
to make the difference or make that changeover. But it smooth as hell, man. If Benoit didn't face Eddie on Nitro, this clearly would have taken the cake for me as well. But great stuff, man. No question about it. After this, however, we did things ended up getting a little sloppy here. They have a big, almost like a 3-4 way feud, a tag feud uh, with the Gangsters, the Pitbulls, the Public Enemy, and Raven and Stevie Richards. A lot going on here. How did we start the segment off, Cage? Did you have any clear notes on this? I was a little all over the place with this.
Oh, I was a little off with this. We did hear that Public Enemy and the Gangsters would be facing each other underneath a bridge or a trestle somewhere in the heart of Philly, but they renixed on that because it would be too dangerous. So they actually that was we get a little hint at that at the end of the show with Public Enemy and the Gangsters, but I guess it was just some way to kind of throw their whole tag division together. I didn't have much. I didn't really have much of an explanation on that either, other than the fact that we moved into the Raven and Richards versus the Pitbulls. We have the lumberjack match. We have Big Dick on the outside. We also have 911 and 2 referees, referee Bill Alfonso and top commissioner Todd Gordon. So this was, I guess, kind of the main event. What did you have on this?
A lot of gimmicks, a lot of shenanigans for sure. Almost
Yeah.
overbooked. Honestly, no, I will say overbooked because we're lost. We're trying to review it, and there's too much going on. That's rare for ECW, where we'll call it out and say maybe too much, maybe clarify what's going on a little bit, or I don't know, maybe in 1995 it made a little more sense, but watching back, it just it was easy to get lost. There was too much going on, I think is a good way to put it. But
Definitely.
a good match, fun match. The match itself was easy enough to follow along. I'm not saying that was contrived, but just the storylines behind it. There was almost too many that interwove into too many other stories. Just got jarbled, which wasn't like ECW. They were always clear and concise with the stories they told.
I guess it was this match was almost well, we see Raven and Richards pick up the victory. It was more of a 2-on-1 match because Pitbull 1 had been carted off the whole pre-match ambulance ride or stretcher ride, whatever you want to call it. But it was almost more to build Fonzie and Todd Gordon because they got into their blood feud. I mean, literal blood feud. At the end of the match, and it was like almost uncomfortable to watch because you got to see Todd Gordon get his clothes ripped off, and Fonzie's really laying it to him, and it was
vicious.
What's that? Yeah, it was vicious. It was definitely vicious. So we saw a lot of things. We see 911 get involved. We saw Chubby Dudley, who I don't remember being part of the Dudley family. At one point, 911 chokeslammed everyone. Raven and Richards picked up the victory with help from Cactus Jack. We see get involved, and then of course this
was for the title. So we saw new tag champs here.
So actually they got the belt back. Yes, correct. Even though it was a 2-on-1 match for the whole match, so so
they were still on the line.
Yeah, but the whole match basically was a 2-on-1. But still, we'll see that feud continue. Next week, however, we're going to see Mikey versus Sandman. I guess this is their ladder match that they're going to have, and of course, we're going to see some more of the Extreme superstar Steve Austin. We're going to see him get involved. Sure. And that takes us to what we thought was going to be the next match, which was Public Enemy versus the Gangsters. And right as that match is going to start, because of the format, what they do with Hardcore TV, they to be continued, which was cool in a way because you made it still a TV show, and you made it so that you were like, whoa, a cliffhanger, let's come back to this next week and see what happens, because that's everybody wanted to see the Gangsters and Public Enemy. They were pulling out crazy stuff, crazy spots, throwing each other all around the whole arena and taking, crazy bumps off the top of 3 tables, which they showed again, the 3-table spot from a few weeks earlier. So a lot going on. And of course we had the end. After that, we had kind of a mess load of things. Did you have a lot of notes on that as well of what we saw to wrap up the show?
Yeah, not too much more than what you had pointed out. We'd seen the Sandman had a ladder promo. I called it. It was just a promo about the ladder match with the ladder in the background. So they're pushing that pretty strong. That's going to be a fun one. And like we've talked about before, the Sandman's very unique with his weapon offense. So you're going to see a lot of table or ladder suplexes and maybe some the Terry Funk spin. That's some vintage Sandman. So he's going to pull out some fun stuff there with the ladder match. Then of course the final montage interview segment that they do. We heard from Taz, Fonzie, Todd Gordon, Cactus Jack, and Tommy Dreamer. So some good stuff in there. Cactus had a great line that you pointed out in the pre-show meeting, talking about some of the great tag teams of our day, talking about the Briscoes and the American Males and what so just a funny little Cactus Jack line in there, going along with that his heel character of WCW being better than ECW and Uncle Eric and all that good stuff.
Right.
So more good stuff. Cactus. This was a shorter one though. He didn't. I don't remember it being like a 10-minute promo like his previous.
No, he was basically putting himself over that. Hey, I'm a former WCW tag champion. Okay.
Right.
You're talking about going back to the Briscoes and I forgot who else he named, like Flair and some Sting or something. I don't know. And then he happened to throw in the American Males there. One other point or one other thing that they jumped on, which was pretty important, was the debut of Conan. And Conan was apparently very instrumental, even though he hadn't debuted yet, very instrumental in bringing in Psychosis, Rey Mysterio, and Lucha Libre to the United States. So, and this is something that WCW, for their new cruiserweight division, like we talked about, they're going to jump right in and try to snatch these guys almost immediately, being Rey, Mysterio, Psychosis, Conan, because of their new uniqueness that they had brought to the table at this time.
Right. Well, look what happened with Eddie and Benoit and Malenko. Like those guys, you get hot in ECW. It's only a matter of time before either Eric or Vince is looking for you, and that would be the case all throughout, right up until the end, unfortunately. So we've seen a couple go so far, and it's not going to be too awful much longer before Rey and Psychosis get the call, and so really we have to enjoy these 2 out of 3 falls and the hardcore no rules versions of guys while we can. So being able to see these guys come through ECW before they make their way up, it was so much fun back then, and even now still seeing them today go from one show to the next and seeing the crowds grow with them. It's cool. It's a fun aspect of this show.
Well, because it kept the talent kind of fresh too. So like you had mentioned the guys that WCW is going to snatch up, but let's think about the guys that WWF is going to snatch up. We're going to see Mankind pretty soon. We're going to see at least spring of '96. Same thing with the Ringmaster, Steve Austin. So we're going to see those guys, and then Sabu is gone from WCW, so now he's going to come back to ECW. So you have all these moving parts and all this amazing talent being shuffled around. None of the shows were ever boring because you just never knew who was going to show up that week on what show. I mean, we know now when these guys are leaving for this show and Vader's going and this guy's going. So we know now looking back on it, but at the time it was like, holy cow, wow, Rey Mysterio, he was in ECW, or this is Cactus Jack from WCW and ECW. Now he's Mankind with a mask, so a lot of cool things to look at.
That what you said, man, that made it such a great time to be a fan, to watch, especially live, without so much internet background and really digging in, because nowadays it's like they especially with WWE they structure their contracts so even if a guy is leaving, he can't go anywhere for 90 days. It's not like he can jump to AEW tomorrow and you don't know. It's like every move that's happened. FTR, the Revival, when they left, we knew for 6 months they were going to end up in AEW. It wouldn't have been a big deal anyway, because I don't know. The Revival is just not money to me. They're great in the ring, but anyway. But like the point is, like, you just don't see the big jump. I guess they did it with Moxley, but you knew he was gone. So it was way different back then. You just didn't know. You didn't know who was going to hop the rail, that kind of thing. And
plus now, on top of that, everything is hot shotted so much now that like as soon as you hear about it, it happens. You know what I mean? So like, say Matt Hardy went and wrestled in Impact or Ring of Honor for months, and then all of a sudden showed up on AEW. Like that would have been so much more impactful than like, oh, he's leaving tomorrow. Next week he's on AEW. Or even like a guy, a big fan that we are, Brian Cage. Before his injury, we already heard that he was going to AEW. So like. There would have been a huge debut because he had never made it up to the top of the the AEWs or the Raws or NXT or something like that. Like, so if he had showed up completely unannounced, that definitely takes away from his in a way, the internet sucks. It's
positives and negatives. We all love being on the inside of the business, but it makes if you're trying to be a fan too, it makes it less fun. So you got to weigh the pros and cons of that. You can do your research and be the next Dave Meltzer, or you can just sit back and shut up and enjoy the show. So sometimes it's fun to do either or, and there's no wrong way to enjoy pro wrestling, which is a wonderful thing about it. But that's it for my notes. I enjoy rambling with you, but I think as far as the show goes, we're covered up until next week. We do have a pay-per-view. You said in your house. What is this? 6, I believe. 5 or 6. I'm not sure offhand.
Yeah, that sounds right. 6, I think. Yep.
So we have Diesel and Bulldog. Like you said, that was a good poll question for this week. I'm interested to see how Bulldog is received. For me, I'd say he should have had it, but I'm also a guy who thinks that Rick Rude should have had it and Mr. Perfect should have had it. If you're a strong heel character like those guys, and not necessarily the Bulldog was, but he was a strong character in general, or strong enough that he could have carried a month or two run, especially at this time, because Diesel sucks. No other way to put it. Diesel's not a good champion. He doesn't draw. He didn't draw numbers for him, so it couldn't have hurt anything to throw the strap on him. But I don't know. We'll see what the fans think next week.
No, I completely agree. And a lot of times it has to do with the actual build. So if you had taken the British Bulldog after he had won the IC title and then slowly moved him up to the main event title, like that was the time to do that, like they did with Shawn Michaels or they did with Brett even back before that. And yeah, I agree with you on Diesel. I mean, obviously Kevin Nash was super over once the whole NWO and all that stuff. But at this point, looking back at it, like I thought Razor would have been a better champ, better worker, definitely super over. You know what I mean? Bad guy, or babyface, or a heel. I thought he could work both styles. But like we said, we're gonna have a lot of moving parts going, like pretty much within the next 2-3 months. We're gonna see a lot of moving parts with every show. We're gonna see guys starting to jump, and we're gonna see kind of the hints at different characters. And then of course this next pay-per-view, everything gets jumbled up with Monday Night Raw. And I think Vince is kind of going to be in a scramble mode to acquire more talent because he's he has to know that these guys' contracts are going to be running out here shortly in Hall and Nash. So who are pretty much their top 2 guys?
To add on to that, not even if they weren't leaving, the top of their roster is thin anyway. You got Razor, Diesel, Brett, Shawn. Then on the outside, you got maybe Yoko. Like the guys they're trying to build. But really, they're like top 4. Maybe Taker could be a top 5 at this point. But you're thin on reliable, drawable talent. So
they have no middle card.
Right.
No middle card whatsoever. You know what I mean?
No,
I mean,
that's very low, very weak. Razor really was it at this point. If you didn't consider him a top guy, he was essentially the mid card. And then under that, you have your smoking guns, your Skips, your Barry Horowitz. There's a undercard was full of job guys. Hate to put it that way, but just the hierarchy wasn't really set the way it should have been for the WWF. So it makes sense that he's looking to sign the Mankinds and the Stone Colds, just to get some fresh blood in. We need something fresh on Monday nights for Raw anyway, because these shows haven't been doing it for us. So interesting call.
All right, excellent. Right. So
that wraps it up for this week. I'm good. I got nothing left for this. What are we in the third week of the second week of October? So next we'll look forward to this pay-per-view, second or third week, the 16th, whatever that translates to. But the pay-per-view, we'll look forward to that, and the show's next week. So I got nothing else. Cage, why don't you wrap up for us tonight?
Alrighty, yes, thanks. Let's put the finishing touches on here. Like I said, we're gonna be taking a look next weig following the big In Your House pay-per-view. A lot of things are going to go fly by the wayside as far as what was booked. But for SIG, I'm KG for the East-West Connection Wrestling Podcast. Thanks for watching, guys. See you next week.